Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to Korean Atlanta Mentorship. When it comes to velocity banking, people say, hey, you should use a personal line of credit or a home equity line of credit as your main tool. And yes, that is true, but it does not mean that you should get rid of your credit cards because you have credit card debt, right? So here's a few tips on credit card mastery, or what I would do if I were doing velocity banking. Again, this is not financial advice. This is just things that I would do, okay? And with regarding velocity banking and how I would use credit cards. I'm just going to demonstrate these few things one by one. So first things first is that when you have credit cards, if you have a big enough line of credit, I would move all of the credit card debt to that one line of credit to increase your cash flow. Number two, it does not mean that you remove the credit cards completely out of your life. Credit is a tool, right? In my opinion, credit is a tool to help maintain your cash flow in case you have big purchases and expenses. The only problem is that, when we use the credit card, there's a lot of interest that could be carried over if we just make the minimum payment. And then the third thing that we want to consider is that when we use credit cards with velocity banking, the main purpose is to, number one, help us obtain rewards if there are rewards, and also delay paying interest. Because what is the big disadvantage that a home equity line of credit or personal line of credit has that a credit card does not? If you take out money from a personal or home equity line of credit, you always have to pay interest. Whereas with a credit card, if you pay the statement balances consistently in full, that means you don't pay interest, right? So if we use a combination of a line of credit or a home equity line of credit and a credit card, then we can potentially delay the interest by about a month, right? While we're in our debt payoff mode. And once we've completely paid off debt, then we don't really need to use that line of credit or the personal home equity line of credit anymore. We just use credit cards. So let's just demonstrate this, okay? So now we have our velocity banking scenario. And again, just kind of as a basic repeat, all velocity banking is a way to quickly pay off debts using your lines of credit as our main tool. And we assume two things: same income, zero savings. Because what are we going to do? We're going to put our entire paycheck into our line of credit and take our expenses out, and then our balance will go down by our cash flow, right? And so if we take a look here, let's take a look at credit card mastery tip number one. All credit cards should be moved to one line of credit to increase cash flow if it's possible, right? So luckily, we have a $200,000 home equity line of credit, and that's dependent on the value of your home. You're kind of using your home almost like an ATM or a credit card. And if we just do a simple debt transfer, right? Let's move. And I always love using this credit card example where we have 10 credit cards, which is $167,000 of credit card debt. Let's just go ahead and move it right here, 167,000. Guess what happens? It's by simply moving this debt to one line of credit. 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. Oh my goodness, that was easy. And I do this every single time. This went from $355 to $5,701. So that's tip number one. All credit cards should be moved to one line of credit to go ahead and increase your cash flow. Okay? And then what is our cash flow? $5,701.35. Now, what is the actual strategy? The actual strategy of velocity banking is you put your entire paycheck into that line of credit, and it does two things: it satisfies the minimum monthly payment, and then it lowers that average daily balance, right? Because the interest accrued is calculated by the average daily balance. So let's go ahead and calculate this. So I2 plus 1. And then what we're going to do to get the next month's balance is get the previous month's balance plus the previous month's interest minus our cash flow right here, 5701.35. Okay. And then now what we're going to do is take the average daily balance, multiply it by our interest rate, 0.1, 10%, and then divide by 12. Okay? So now here's the thing. Here's the trick. So at this stage, even though we've transferred all of our debt to the credit cards, right? What we're going to do is we could still use these 10 credit cards, but we always use it for our general expenses up to $2,500. So even though technically we would consider this to be zero, what we're just making sure is that these credit cards are only used up to this limit, and so it's still our cash flow is still going to go down about $5,700, right? And this is the same strategy I use because I have about 13 credit cards. In fact, I have about $258,000 in total lines of credit. $258,000, right? But I don't max them all out, but I do use them, and I don't carry a balance, but I use them up to the point where I need my general expenses, food, gas, insurance, etc., all that other good stuff, right? So that's essentially tip number two. All credit cards should be used up to the general expense amount. Anything not related to a debt, which is all of your living expenses. So again, we can still use our credit cards, but up to the point right here, right? Now, let's go ahead and copy this. So as we're in our debt payoff journey, right? Let's go here. We're still going to use credit cards because if we decide, hey, we're never going to use credit cards, right? We're absolutely never going to use credit cards. We've sworn them off. Guess what happens if we pay our general expenses directly from my line of credit? Let's say we wanted to pay like electric bill today, right? If I take out money directly from the line of credit to pay off that electric bill, guess what happens? Interest starts to accrue either that same day or the next day. That's what happens. But let's say the electric bill is due and I'm going to use it to pay credit card 10 with that electric bill. Guess what? I don't need to pay it off immediately for interest not to accrue, just as long as I subsequently pay the full statement balance, right? And then I could possibly wait a month, the very last day, to keep paying that credit card statement balances, right? So this is why the purpose of the credit cards is to delay paying the interest, and we can also obtain rewards points as well. Whereas with a regular line of credit, we never, ever, as far as I'm aware, they never reward you for spending on a personal or home equity line of credit, right? They never do that. But with a credit card, man, they do that. So this is essentially the three credit card mastery tips when it comes to velocity banking. And so number one, all credit cards should be moved to one line of credit to increase cash flow. And we see how we did that from here to here. Number two, all credit cards should be used up to the general expense amount. So again, we're not getting rid of our credit cards. We're just using it up to this 2,500 number. Number three, we need to make sure that we do use them to get the most rewards and also delay paying interest, right? Because if we use our line of credit directly to pay for things instead of our credit cards, then we're going to accrue the interest on that day we use the credit cards, or not the credit cards. We pay for our expenses with the line of credit. And let's go ahead and finish this right here. I'm just going to copy and paste, and we'll see how long it takes for us to pay off $167,000 of debt, which is 34 months. Can you believe that? $167,000 of credit card debt. We started at $355 a month of savings. We said, hey, let's sack the savings, get the cash flow, entire paycheck into line of credit, expenses out. Oh my goodness, look how easy that was. And we paid everything off in about 34 months, right? So just a quick review of velocity banking and some credit card mastery tips. Again, not financial advice. Uh, don't listen to what I say. It's all bunk, and I'm going to go to sleep now. All right. Well, this is Korean Atlanta Mentorship. So I hope you have a good night, and we will speak next time.